Hi, and welcome to the Eczema Podcast, where you'll learn tips, products, and natural eczema remedies from Abby, registered holistic nutritionist and founder of PrimePhysiqueNutrition.com. Here's your host of the Eczema Podcast, Abby.
So hi everyone, welcome to the Eczema Podcast. I am here with Dr. Peter Leo. If you heard our first podcast together on episode 3, that was a lot about acupuncture, bathing, different oils that are great for eczema. And I got so much good feedback on that podcast that I thought I would bring Dr. Peter Leo back again. And it's my greatest pleasure to invite him back. He's a doctor, professor, and one of the co-founders of the Chicago Integrative Eczema Center, which is in Chicago, and they use both alternative and mainstream medicine to treat eczema, which is awesome. So welcome, Dr. Peter Leo.
Thank you for having me, Abby. It's great to be back.
Yeah, I know. It's so good, and I know last time you gave us such great information. And a lot of my listeners learned a lot, and they felt that you were so passionate. So happy to be able to chat with you today about babies, about helping severe eczema, and topical steroid withdrawal as well. So let's start off with talking about eczema in babies and prevention. Is there anything that you might want to start with to tell us about?
There is, and what's really interesting is that we would love to prevent this disease. That is the goal. If we can prevent it, that's even better than curing it, because that means you don't ever have to experience it at all. And so lots of work is being done in this domain, and a good friend of mine named Eric Simpson, he is faculty at Oregon Health Sciences University in Portland. And he is incredibly brilliant and just put out the initial data on a study he's done where they took babies that were at high risk of developing atopic dermatitis. Usually one or both parents had pretty severe atopic dermatitis, so these babies had a pretty high risk. And they randomized them either to using moisturizer a couple times per day. I think actually ended up being just once per day in the study versus not using moisturizer. And what they found is the group that used moisturizer had a significantly decreased rate of developing eczema, suggesting that you can prevent it by protecting the skin barrier. And this created a huge wave. Everyone got very excited. We still need to do more before we know this is 100%. And of course, it didn't totally stop it. It just decreased the number of people expected to develop it. So my guess is that for a certain group of people, moisturizing the skin and protecting the skin will help prevent them from developing eczema.
That's
What's
amazing.
really interesting too, isn't that awesome? I mean,
Yeah.
It's super inexpensive. It can be safe. I mean, they used like a simple over-the-counter moisturizer for the study, but presumably any kind of a good moisturizer will be fine. So we're telling patients, just pick your favorite. In families that are high risk, just start moisturizing the baby from early on. Of course, it can be a natural product. We just want something that protects the skin and keeps it soft and supple. The thinking is that many patients with eczema have leaky skin. Their skin barrier is not doing its job. It's not tight and keeping water in, keeping allergens and irritants out. So if your skin is leaky, junk gets in, which then encourages the immune system to get wacky. It starts creating inflammation and itch, and you start the cycle. By putting a barrier on it, you keep it functionally strong, and you prevent the whole cycle. So that's exciting.
That's amazing. Is there anything else in babies that you usually see that you might want to talk about or bring attention to as well?
Thank you. The other piece that's been really somewhat controversial has been probiotics. So many people are really talking about the microbiome, the bacteria that lives on our skin and actually all in our body, our gut, in every part of our body that we are exposed to. And we know that there's healthy bacteria, healthy organisms that are playing an important role in keeping us healthy. If that balance gets shifted, then people get sick and things fall apart. We know with atopic dermatitis, the balance is really wacky, both on the skin and in the gut. From like 7 days of life, you can take a newborn baby, basically check their gut, and you see they have decreased diversity of bacteria. So something's already not quite right for many of these kids.
Wow.
So it follows maybe then if we can add back healthy bacteria through probiotics or maybe even prebiotics, which prebiotics means kind of sugars that help facilitate growth of healthy bacteria. If you put this back, maybe you can prevent it. And the evidence says Maybe. There are a couple studies that are really impressive that show kids who take probiotics. Actually, one of the neat studies was they had the moms who were pregnant take the probiotics. As soon as the babies came out, they went on probiotics. The eczema rate dropped significantly.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then other studies show it doesn't help. So we're confused, and we think when this kind of stuff happens, where you see a good study, everything was done right, where it works, another study where it doesn't work, you think, okay, maybe this is a subgroup problem. There's a certain group of patients who will really respond well to this, and another group it won't affect. And so depending on the luck of the draw, because we don't know how to select them, what am I telling my patients? Probiotics are pretty safe. They're pretty healthy. We don't think they're expensive for most patients. They can do this as a preventative. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, you're not losing a lot. But there are a lot of unanswered questions. Which probiotic to pick? How frequently to take it? When to start it? We don't have good answers. And that's the problem. The literature is a mess. There's a whole bunch of different studies.
Do you think the brand of probiotic that was used in the research studies makes a difference too?
I really do. I think it could. And so that's the other problem. You got all these studies say, oh, probiotics, but hey, this one is very different than this one. They're a different bacteria, different amount, different dosage. How can you compare that? It's not fair.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know one thing we also wanted to talk about was severe eczema in adults, especially when it comes to treating adults using both mainstream and alternative medicine. Is there anything that you might want to speak to about that?
Yeah, so that's one of our toughest groups. We do have a lot of older patients, not little kids anymore. Many of whom are really upset because their doctors had said, "Oh, you're going to grow out of this. Don't worry, just wait it out." And that's really important, I think, because especially patients who are worried about conventional treatments. For example, we're going to talk a little bit about the corticosteroid or steroid phobia. People just don't want to do it, and they say, "Well, I'm just going to wait this out. It's going to get better." This is a little bit evidence to the contrary. People that have waited a long time, some of them have been very aggressive, but others of my patients have not done much treatments. They've been worried about them and they're waiting. And now they hit adulthood and they're like, okay, this has been going on and off for 30 years. This is too much. Their entire life is now defined by this disease. And that's no good. I mean, right, the whole point of a doctor, why I went into this whole thing was to help people so they don't have to worry about their health. We want to get their skin better so they can go back to life. If your whole life is surrounded, is focused on your skin, that's maybe not, I think we failed. We failed you. We've not been able to give you what you need. So what do we offer these patients? There are a couple of things. The most exciting thing, I think, coming down the line are the biologic drugs. These have been really big in psoriasis. You may have heard of them, all these antibodies that help block some of the immune system. What's great about them is they're not really immune suppressing. If you take prednisone, which works great, but it's terrible for your body. It suppresses your immune system. It destroys your skin. It beats up your eyes. It damages your gut. You really want nobody on that kind of drug. It's just bad, although it does help temporarily. The other problem, of course, with prednisone is you take it for a while, you're clear, and then when you stop, you spike, and it's terrible. So we don't have a lot of great options. So these new biologic drugs will be less immunosuppressive, meaning your immune system stays pretty robust. You can fight off bacteria, you can fight off infections, you can fight off cancers, which is another problem. If you suppress someone's immune system for a long time, their risk of cancer goes way up because part of your immune system's job is to fight precancerous things growing in your body. The biologic agents are so specific that they basically get around this concept by not truly immunosuppressing you, but allow you to still keep those key parts of the immune system that are overacting and causing the trouble under control, and do so without a lot of side effects. So we're waiting. There's a current drug that is in phase 3 trials here in the US that we think if it goes through, and it looks like we are gonna have a very powerful medicine. It's very conventional, however. It's not an alternative treatment. It has potential side effects, and some patients won't like it. It's also going to cost a ton of money. Estimates are that it's going to be around $40,000 US dollars per year, which is a little bit intense.
That's a lot.
In the alternative domain, a couple of things that I like to tell my patients about, because many patients who come see me have not thought about this and have not done this. Phototherapy. Light therapy, even though it's conventional, I still feel like it's very much a natural treatment. We're going to take basically a filtered sunlight and shine it on your skin. It calms down itch and inflammation. It's really very gentle. We have lots of control over it. So if we feel like you're getting too pink, we say, okay, we're going to just lower it. It's my favorite treatment. If I had psoriasis or atopic dermatitis, I would jump in the booth. I would get light, because even though, yes, there's a small risk of skin cancer down the line, in the big picture, it's very small, and the rest of your body is doing great. You're not damaging any other organs.
I've heard so so many people who have been getting into phototherapy, and I've actually had so many readers ask me lately what my thoughts are on phototherapy. And I know for some people it works and for some people it doesn't. What's the usual success rate for it?
It's about 70%, so it's good but not
bad.
great.
And for side effects, is there any other side effect aside from skin cancer? I know you mentioned the probability is pretty small.
It's low, and you have to do it for a long time for it to be a real issue. And the cool thing is for our psoriasis patients, yes, they're basically on and off phototherapy their whole life. For atopic dermatitis, not so much. Many times it's a few months, maybe 6 months, and then they get a long break. And it kind of is, we call it a remittive therapy. It sort of puts everything in a remission state where people are like, Doc, I'm fine, actually. I'm really, really good. This whole summer's been great. I haven't had light treatment for 3 months. I'm good. So long as I keep up my moisturizer, maybe a little bit of cortisone to like little focal spots if they're starting to get bad, but maybe not. Some patients are like, I'm medicine free and I'm in heaven. I'm like, this is the best.
That's awesome.
Call me if you have a great summer. The long-term effects, so it'd be the skin cancer. Short-term is you can get burns. So some of our patients who are sensitive will be like calling me saying, I'm hurting, I have bad sunburn, and then we have to know that and we have to adjust the light therapy. So it's uncomfortable, but not bad. The biggest issue is time. You have to come in 2 to 3 times per week. And if you're a kid, in school, it's just tough for the family. If you're an adult, a professional working, it's like, how are you going to get time to do this? So that is a tricky thing. But for patients who do it, and when it does work, it's my favorite of all.
Wow. What about the cost?
So it is pretty well covered by insurance here in the U.S., so that usually not a huge issue. But one of the things we're seeing as we've gone to different models of healthcare, where our healthcare system's undergoing a lot of changes, many patients are able to get cheaper insurance, which is great. We want that. We want everyone to have good quality insurance. But there's a trade-off, these high deductibles. And a deductible for us is basically, it's like, we're going to cover, basically all this stuff for a pretty low price, but the first few $1,000s, you have to pay it all. Which if you have a few $1,000s, it's a good investment, it's fine. But many patients are like, I don't have $5,000 and I can't start paying a huge amount of money right away. And so then you take the brunt of all these treatments, which can be anywhere. It depends a little bit on how much body surface area and so on we're treating, but it can be like $100 per session sometimes, or even more, which if you're just paying cash can be too much for a lot of people.
That can be a lot. But as you mentioned, if it works and if it has a 70% chance of success rate, then it might be a good solution for some people to try.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about the other alternative treatments that you mentioned could be a possible solution?
So I knew that alternative medicine was taking hold a little bit more here when one of my old teachers, who I love and respect, but is very non-alternative. In fact, she doesn't really like it at all. But at her section, we had our big Academy of Dermatology meeting just last weekend. It was in San Francisco. It was a great meeting, and I did a few lectures there. And one of the sessions I was in, she gave a talk and she mentioned coconut oil and sunflower seed oil as conventional medicines.
Wow.
Which is so. I know, isn't that? It was like, wow. I mean, it was an alternative, but she's like, I like them, and
That's great.
I feel that I put the word out, and people have been telling her, and so now she is actually putting that into the mainstream canon of treatments. So those are my two probably big favorites: coconut and sunflower. The other thing that I've been really interested lately is curcumin or turmeric.
I love turmeric.
It's right. It's so interesting, and there was just a big paper that it really, good study shows it helps with psoriasis. So now, I think we need to do the right studies. We need to see if this works in eczema. I suspect it's going to help. I think that there's a very good chance that it's going to help some patients. And again, even if it's not a huge help, we'll take a small help. Even if it's just 10% better, it's safe. It's really gentle. And they have it in a pill. The way I've been giving it, though, that I think is the best, and again, this is one of the things the study has to address. If you just take some supplement, maybe it won't, maybe it will. But the way I have people do it is I have them make up a little cocktail, a little shot in vegetable broth or chicken broth. I try to keep vegetarian, so I like the vegetable broth. And then a little bit of coconut oil and a little bit of black pepper, fresh ground black pepper. That combination, it doesn't taste as gross as it sounds. It tastes like soup broth. You drink it down. The absorption's really good. I learned about this actually for people that have a condition called hidradenitis, where they get this kind of terrible acne-like stuff in the armpits and groin, and it has been helping. And so I feel like this is a very nice thing. Even if it helps a tiny bit, I'll take it. It's safe, it's gentle, it's basically a food.
Is there a reason why you suggest it in vegetable broth as opposed to maybe like a tea or some other form?
I think for the broth, it could probably be in a lot of different ways. I think because you're going to add the coconut oil, the tea might taste a little funny. You might get a bizarre flavor, but I'd love to hear. People have recipes. I'd love to hear how they do it, because part of it is making it palatable. So this is something I kind of learned from patients. I had a patient who figured this out or was talking to people online, and she told me about it. I had patients use it, and most patients say, you know what, it's not bad. It's easy to do. The biggest thing they say is when you mix the turmeric powder, the curcumin powder, it makes a mess in your kitchen because it gets, that yellowish dust all over everything. But small
stains everything. One way that I really love that I've tried and that other people have told me they really like is making a golden milk tea. So using almond milk, warming it up, and then adding turmeric, a bit of honey or manuka honey, and then adding like some grated ginger, and apparently that's supposed to be really good as well.
I love this. Will you send me your recipe for this? I want to check this out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
And I'll add it in the blog post as well.
Golden milk, you call it?
Yeah, golden milk tea.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, and maybe we can make one with soy for people who are allergic, or even maybe something else, because the almond milk, a lot of my kids are nut allergic, so I get a little worried about nut milks. But that'd be great. We can experiment with that. Super cool.
True. Or even like hemp milk, maybe that would work too.
I like milk too.
Well, back to the turmeric actually. I've seen some studies where they say that it's just as effective as taking steroids or medication.
I've never seen a study like that's that definitive for something like that. From my personal experience, I would say that's not been my experience so far. But it's an interesting question, and oh my gosh, we'd go crazy. If it's even, like I say, if it's 10% as good as a strong cortisone, I'm in heaven, heaven for it. And I think that may be the case. Again, for some patients seem to be primarily immune driven, and those are the patients who do well with this. Other patients, their skin barrier is the primary issue. So if you don't address it, I think you're like Sisyphus. You push that rock up the hill, but it comes back down because they're leaky. So you really need to do something topical, even if it's just good moisturization. So these are the things we need to figure out. We have to study it a little bit more because we don't know. And even I have a guess on a patient, or I might have an instinct, but sometimes it's wrong. I feel like I get most of my patients better. Some of the patients back says, what you're telling me is not helping at all. And I'm like, crap, I got to think better. I got to figure out the next thing. What am I missing? And so it may be that in some patients it is as good as a steroid, but in others not. So we got to figure that out.
That's definitely true. Now, what are your thoughts on topical steroid withdrawal? I know that it's huge, and I know tons of people who are going through it, and it really breaks my heart to see them go through it.
It's a super big deal. I'm part of the National Eczema Association, which is an amazing patient group, and they're totally dedicated and devoted to patients. I'm just like an advisor. I'm a scientific advisor for them, but it's a patient-run organization, and they are really they're kind of beside themselves in trying to get this information figured out and get the information out there, because one of the things we're going to be doing in the next year is we're going to be going from city to city, number of cities, doing education for practitioners, how best to take care of eczema. And I was talking to the ITSAN people at our academy. They had a couple representatives there, and I was telling them that we are dedicated to getting this message out. We believe in this. We want this out there. I want everyone on high alert. One of the problems I think that they faced early on when they first started saying this, they got some pushback from some of the experts, even me included to a certain extent. And it's because I think, and I don't know for sure, but I think I'm already focused on this so much. I don't want people overusing them. So I think we're maybe a little bit better at avoiding it because we're watching everybody so closely and saying, you're using it too much. I got to pull you. And we've been doing that for a while. So I think in some ways we were maybe more resistant to it at first because we said, I don't see this. I have tons of patients and I'm not seeing this. But now I'm starting to understand that I think a lot of patients are not as carefully managed. People just sort of get a prescription and told just keep using it, and then they get hooked and they're in big trouble. So 2 questions. First of all, who's getting this? How do we figure out who's getting this, and how do we avoid it? Basically, that's question one. Number two is, how do we treat it? Because one of the problems, now I've inherited a lot of patients who have this, and we're trying to figure out, what do we do to get them off of it? And then the third question, or part 2B, is, I feel like some patients, I've gotten them through the steroid withdrawal part, but their eczema is still there. They really have eczema. Like, that was a separate thing. I mean, they just got double punishment. Bad eczema. Now they've kind of overused, or sometimes not overused, used them correctly, but now have developed this topical steroid withdrawal. But now we gotten this removed, but now they're left with eczema. So now what? And that was part of the message that I had trouble with in the beginning. ITSAN was pushing out this message of, like, almost suggesting it's all steroids. The whole thing's a sham. And I'm convinced that that's not the case. I mean, I have many patients actually who never touched a steroid in their life, but have terrible eczema, and little babies totally steroid free with terrible eczema. So our challenge is, what do we do for them if we can't use steroids? And so we're struggling with that, and trying to find best practices, and trying to say, let's use them very briefly, very sparingly, lowest one to get you results, get off of them. And then the cool thing is, we have a new medicine coming down the line that hopefully will help us. This is a topical medicine. And again, it's maybe still a year away, but we hopefully sooner. And this is going to be a non-steroid, non-calcineurin inhibitor. So it's different than Protopic and Elidel too. And it's anti-inflammatory. It looks like it's going to be approved as a first-line treatment for atopic dermatitis. Looks really, really safe. And we cannot wait for that medicine as a cream.
Wow, that's really good to hear. So I know you're part of the scientific advisory board for the National Eczema Association. Do you find that most people on the board are, I guess, aware of the topical steroid withdrawal? Like, are they for it, and that they recognize that, I guess, a huge issue?
We're all aware of it now. I mean, it's been a huge topic of discussion. And I think, again, it's just this hard thing of trying to figure out what's the right thing to tell patients, because there's already so much steroid phobia that I have patients who have kids with terrible eczema and are just like, I'm not using steroids. And I'm like, please help this kid. Like, let's break the cycle a little bit. Use it just for a few days. Let's just try. Because, my goal when I treat it is medicine free. But you often have to hit it for a little bit, break the cycle, which is now out of control, and then wean them off. But if we never even get to do the cycle break, I'm sort of limited. I don't have that much to offer. I mean, we do all of our moisturizers. We do all of our antibacterials. I use all of the powers of, our natural stuff that I can. And for mild cases, it's great. If it's pretty mild, we can knock it out. Sunflower coconut combo, that's my favorite oil combo. We'll do special baths. I'll often do dilute apple cider vinegar baths. We'll have my favorite moisturizers, and I like to layer them on wet skin. Oil first, then a cream, then an ointment to lock it in. We can turn around, the driest of skin. No problem. Bring that on. But then we have these kids with this immune type, and their faces beat red and oozing and and crusting, and there's honey-colored crusting that's impetiginized. There's bacteria out of control. They're a mess. And so now it's like, okay, I need more. I gotta shut this off, because the immune system is so hyped up that I can't control it. And again, I swear I have patients that have gone for years no steroids and are still kind of convinced or think that this is topical steroid withdrawal. And I mean, it's hard. I don't know what to tell them. I know we've talked about other things like light therapy or sometimes cyclosporin, and some of these families just say no. And so again, what's the right message? What do we do for these people besides wait? Because sometimes the ITSAN's message has sort of been wait it out, or that's been sort of what people have taken home from it. I don't know if that's the actual message, but you just don't use anything. But if once you're out 2 and 3 years, like, don't we kind of feel like it's time to help people again? Like, if you're 5 years old, that's your whole life. That's everything you know is pain and itch. I don't think that's right for most people. So but I don't know the right answer though always. So how do we figure this out together? Yeah,
that's true. And I think the hardest part for people who are actually going through the topical steroid withdrawal is that when they tell their doctors that the steroids are causing more of a flare up, a lot of the doctors just look at them like they're crazy. So I love what you said about how you guys will be going city to city to educate practitioners. So will this be in like a conference format, or how's that going to work?
Exactly. It's put on by the National Eczema Association. It's nonprofit. It's there might be a small fee to attend them, or it's going to be free. I'm not sure what they decided. It's going to be for dermatologists, allergists, pediatricians, family practice, internal medicine, and allied healthcare practitioners, nurse practitioners, PAs. And there is also a patient component too, I believe, is what they're describing. So patients can come too and learn about stuff and interact and hang out, which is what we want. We want to hear our patients. We want to help our patients. We want them to be happy, because at the end of the day, a doctor can say, oh, use steroids, or I don't care what you're saying. They can say what they want, but if the patient doesn't buy into it, doesn't agree with them, they're not going to do it, and they're not going to get better. So we're totally invested in connecting, making our patients know that they're heard, really hearing them, and then doing the right thing. So that's why, I have everything to gain by a patient who feels like I'm hearing them and understands this, and everything to lose if they feel like, oh, he's just some guy telling me the same thing, pick another topical steroid.
You sound like such a great doctor. I think that's just what patients want to hear. They just want to hear that the doctors care about them.
Not always. We try. We honestly try, but not always. You can't please everyone. So that's one thing you learn. You get humbled pretty quickly, and you can't beat every disease. I try so hard, but I have so many bad eczema patients. And the hardest thing right now is that as I get more mature in my career and become more focused, I get harder and harder referrals. People have seen, 3 allergists, 2 dermatologists, and it's like, oof, it's like they've thought of everything, and they've done a lot of good therapy sometimes. So part of it is, I think, holding faith that we have new things coming, and part of it is just that therapeutic alliance. If we can work together and support, I do a lot of support. Much of my job is just saying, I'm here for you, I'm with you, I know you're suffering, we're going to get through this as best we can, and you ride out some of those real bad days, and we get to the better ones.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. It's great that you care so much about your patients, and I love your enthusiasm and your passion in it. And I know we're running out of time, but do you have any last words that you might want to add in this podcast?
I would just encourage everybody to look at National Eczema Association. It's nationaleczema.org. They're just awesome, and the CEO, Julie Block, is a good buddy, and it's so funny because people are like, what's your connection to eczema? Do you have eczema? Do you have kids with eczema? And she's like, no. She's like, I just did nonprofits, and I got into this one, and I just fell in love with it. And she's incredible and dynamic, and that's a place where I think patients' voices can really be heard. We want patients' voices in there because it's interesting. Julie is very interested in doing what the patients want. Sometimes the scientific advisory board doesn't like that. They say, but we want to focus on this, and Julie says, the constituents want this, so we're going to do what the patients want. So being part of that, and really getting to find a doctor that you feel comfortable with, that will listen to you, that's super, super important. I think that's the therapeutic alliance we need, because it's a crummy disease. And we talked about this last time too. We were saying, anybody with an easy answer, please email me, because we don't think there's an easy answer yet. And if there is, it's not fair. Somebody needs to share it, because we'll adopt it in a minute. If it's something as simple as, don't eat strawberries or use hemp oil or something like that. But we really don't think there's one size fits all yet. But hopefully science will come through and give us some really good ideas.
Yep, I definitely agree. So thank you so much, Peter, for being on the show today. I appreciate all your comments and just having your expertise, and just being able to share that with my audience. I think that a lot of people will benefit from it. If my listeners want to get in touch with you or learn more about what you do, is there contact information or a website they can check out?
Definitely check us out on chicagoeczema.com, www.chicagoeczema.com. That's our eczema center. Lots of information, lots of videos of me going on and on and on about different topics too. All free, all open. No drug companies support that. That just comes from us.
That's wonderful. So thanks so much, Peter, for being on the show today.
Thank you, Abby. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Eczema Podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass it along to your friends and colleagues. Visit primephysiquenutrition.com for more articles and tips. Thanks for listening.